Hey everybody, thank you so much for being here. I am Chef Laura. I am one of your academic tutors, and we are in the Flavorful Formulas CE 167 Purchasing and Cost Control Week 6. With me is Chef Morgan. Today we are going to cover a complete review over the whole entire class. You need, how many portions, a little bit of conversions, contribution margin, lowest possible menu price, food, labor, and other cost percentages, elements of an inventory chart, projected versus actual, and your week 6 assignment. Like I said, I am Chef Laura. Chef Morgan is with me, and we are going to start off with some formulas and some tips. First formula, when you have a question that says you have, the appropriate answer or approach is you're going to divide to get your final answer. Now, the question might start off with you buy or you store. So that means the same exact thing as you have. So if it says you have, you buy, you store, you are going to divide to get your final answer. To go along with this, the question is going to say, how many portions can you make? How many servings can you make? How many batches can you make? All means the same thing. Always divide. When you see a you need question, you're going to multiply to get your final answer. Rounding. So rounding is always going to be done 2 places to the right of the decimal. Here we're talking about money, so you can see that we have 0.43275. The 3 is in the cent spot. That's where we are rounding to, 2 places to the right of the decimal, the cent spot, or like I like to call it, the penny place, because that's where all of your pennies live, okay? The number directly to the right of that is the 2. That determines what happens to that 3. Because that 2 is 4 or lower, the 3 stays the same, and your new amount is going to be 43 cents. When you're dealing with portions or servings, you're always going to round down. You cannot serve a partial portion or a partial serving, so everything to the right of the decimal point gets dropped off. You cannot serve a partial serving or a partial portion. Everything gets dropped off to the right of the decimal. So for example, 26.959 becomes 26. How many servings? Let's do a couple practice questions. You have 1 pound of egg whites. You need 8 ounces to make 1 frittata. How many servings can you make? Step 1, we're going to convert because you can see we have pounds and ounces. So we're going to go 1 pound equals 16 ounces. Now we're going to apply our formula. 16 ounces divided by 8 ounces equals 2 servings. So 16 ounces, again, I just want to make sure that you understand. That's going to take the place of the 1 pound. So you can go back up here and reread that question as you have 16 ounces of egg whites. All right, so you know now that we have 16 ounces. We're going to divide that by the 8 ounces that we need for that 1 serving. We get a total of 2 servings. And you're going to round if you need to, but in this case, we do not round. You have 24 tablespoons of peppercorns. You need 5 teaspoons to make 1 serving of marinade. How many servings can you make? Step 1, convert. 1 tablespoon equals 3 teaspoons. Now we have 24 tablespoons, so now we have to go in and figure out how many total teaspoons do we have. So we're going to take that 24 tablespoons, multiply it by the 3 teaspoons, and we get a total of 72 teaspoons. Now, again, you can take that 72 teaspoons and replace it with 24 tablespoons, or replace the 24 tablespoons with the 72 teaspoons, and you can read it as you have 72 teaspoons of peppercorns. Now we're going to apply the formula, which is 72 teaspoons divided by 5 teaspoons to give us 14.4 servings. Now look at this, we have 0.4. We cannot use that, so we're going to round, and we have 14 servings. The you need questions. Remember, we're going to multiply to find the final answer for this. You need to make 7 servings of onion soup. Each serving requires 1.5 quarts of brown stock. How many quarts of brown stock do you need to make? Straight up multiply. That's all we need to do. 7 servings times 1.5 quarts gives me 10.5 quarts. Now I want you to look at this, all right? Talked about for the you have questions, how many servings can you make questions? You drop that partial part, right? Not here. You do not drop any part of this because you need every single bit of this in order to have enough to make those 7 servings. So do not drop the partial when you are on the you need questions. All right, again, do not round down. All right, now we're going to do a step-by-step process here. This is absolutely going to be necessary, okay? You need to make 64 servings of pasta. Each serving takes 3 teaspoons of crushed garlic. How many tablespoons of crushed garlic do you need? Step 1, convert. 1 tablespoon equals 3 teaspoons. Now we're going to get the total number of teaspoons that we need by taking that 64 servings times the 3 teaspoons to get a total of 192 teaspoons. Now we need to change that 192 teaspoons into tablespoons. And to do that, I'm going to take that 192 teaspoons, divide it by the 3 teaspoons, and it's going to give me a total of 64 tablespoons. All right, now we're going to talk about ingredient costing. All right, it's going to be very important to follow that step by step to properly cost out each ingredient. We're going to convert to the smaller unit of measure. We're going to divide the total cost by the total number of units. Now, units can be anything from ounces, pounds, cups, and so on. And that way it's going to give us the cost per that unit. Then we're going to multiply the cost per unit by the amount needed for that one portion. And then we're going to round to the nearest cent. All right, so now we're going to go from pounds to ounces. You buy shrimp at $10.77 a pound. Each portion of shrimp and grits requires 4 ounces of shrimp. How much does the shrimp for one portion cost? And we're going to round it to the nearest cent. 1 pound equals 16 ounces. $10.77 divided by 16 ounces gives me my cost per ounce. We are not going to round yet. If we round too soon, our answer is going to be completely off. We're going to take that cost per unit and we're going to multiply it by the amount we need for that one portion, and it's going to give us our total cost. And now we're going to round it to the nearest cent, which is going to be $2.69. Gallons to cups. You buy fish stock for $19.96 a gallon. Each portion of seafood chowder requires 2 cups of fish stock. How much does the fish stock for one portion cost? Round it to the nearest cent. All right, we're going to convert first. 1 gallon equals 16 cups. $19.96 divided by our 16 cups gives us our cost per cup. Now remember, don't round yet. Take that cost per cup, multiply it by the 2 cups required for that one portion. It's going to give you your total cost and round it to the nearest cent, which would be $2.50. All right, now we're going to talk about a few definitions. I feel it's always important that you know the definitions so you understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. Okay, so profit. What is a profit? That's the amount of actual cash from collected revenue after all of your expenses have been paid. A loss is the amount of cash you have to pay to keep the business going. You do not want to be in a loss, and you really don't want to even be in a break-even point, because that's the point at which your revenue, your sales, are exactly equal to your expenses. Fixed cost. These are costs that are not going to change from month to month. It could be your rent, your mortgage, terms on a loan, salaries. Those types of things do not change from month to month, so they are considered fixed cost. Variable costs, they can change, right? Your food cost, labor cost, beverage cost, taxes, those things can change, so they are considered variable. Your food cost is the amount of money that you're going to spend on food during that given inventory period. Your beverage cost is the amount of money that you're going to spend on beverages during that given inventory period. Now, sometimes things like juices, water, sodas, those aren't significant amount of cost, so they could be put in with your food cost. When we're talking about beverage costs, we're talking about your alcoholic beverages, your spirits, wines, liquors, beers, those kinds of things. That's going to be mainly your beverage cost. Labor cost is the amount of money the food service operations spent on hourly and salaried employees during the given period. Now, it can include hourly wages, salaries, benefits, taxes, vacations. All of those things are going to be included in your labor cost. Revenue and sales, the total amount of collected cash and the recognized non-cash value. Cash is that money that you collect after your services are rendered. Now, comps, they're also known as credits, but there's no cash that's exchanged for the services. Okay, this could be anything from maybe you are affording your employees a meal per shift or a discounted meal per shift. Maybe a customer came in, it's their birthday, and you're going to comp them a free dessert. Maybe service didn't go well for a customer, and you want to make sure you keep your customers happy, right? And so you might comp them a free beverage or, a discounted meal, whatever it is, to make sure that your customers stay happy. Those types of things are all considered comps. All right, let's look at some more formulas. Contribution margin. This is not your profit. I always like to stress that. This is not your profit. Your contribution margin is the money that is left over that's going to go into your contribution bank after you sell that item, right? So your menu price minus your cost or sales minus cost. All right. So you have your sales. What did it cost me to make that meal, that entree? I subtract it. What's left over is not profit. It goes into my contribution bank to help pay for all of my other cost. Your lowest possible menu price, your cost of goods sold or your food cost, divided by the desired food cost percentage will give you your menu price. Cost of goods sold percentage. It's your cost of goods sold divided by your total sales. It's going to give you a decimal number that you multiply by 100 to give you your percentage. Labor cost and other costs, exact same formula. You're just plugging in either labor or other cost. Again, all three have the exact same formula. It just depends on what you're working with, what you're trying to find, what percentage you're looking for, and what you're going to plug in. Food cost. The formula for food cost is your beginning inventory plus all of your purchases, and then you're going to subtract your ending inventory from that. Edible portion price or EP price as purchased price divided by the yield percentage of that product, and that will give you your edible portion price. Remember rounding, the 30-30-30-10 rule. All right, so 30-30-30-10, that's 30% food, 30% labor, 30% other, with a 10% profit, and it all equals up to 100%. Contribution margin, sales minus cost. All right, so we're going to do a couple of these. The ingredients for your decadent cinnamon roll cost $2.25. You sell it for $7.50. What is your contribution margin? All right, we're taking our cost, or excuse me, our sales minus our cost, and it's going to give me my contribution margin, which is $5.25. The ingredients for your crispy crinkle cut French fries cost $1.75. You sell it for $5.99. We're going to take that $5.99. We're going to subtract the $1.75, and we're going to get $4.24 to go into our contribution bank to give us money to help pay for all of our other expenses. Menu pricing, cost divided by food cost percentage equals your menu price. The ingredients for your vegan lasagna cost $6.85. You want your food cost for this item to be 30% or lower. What is the lowest price you can charge? $6.85 divided by 30%. Now, if you do not have a percentage sign in your calculator, no problem. All you have to do is change that 30% to a decimal, which is just simply 0.30. So $6.85 divided by 0.30 gives me this number right here, and I'm going to round it to the nearest cent, which is $22.83. That's my menu price right there. The ingredients for your breakfast skillet cost $2.75. You want your food cost for this item to be 30% or lower. Again, what can you charge for it? $2.75 divided by 0.30 gives me my menu price, and I'm going to round it to the nearest cent, which is $9.17. Cost of goods sold percentage. Food cost divided by total sales gives us a decimal number that we multiply by 100. Food cost for last week was $4,300. Sales were $8,243. Now we're going to figure out what our cost of goods sold percentage is. 4,300 divided by 8,243 gives me that decimal number that I multiply by 100 to give me my percentage. And again, I'm rounding two places to the right of the decimal. That's the nearest percentage point for 52.17%. Your food cost for last week is now $10,050. Sales, $45,200. Let's see what we get. 10,050 divided by 45,200 gives me that decimal number that I'm multiplying by 100 to give me my percentage. And again, rounding to the nearest percentage point, which is two places to the right of the decimal, for 22.23%. Now remember, when you are talking about money, when you're doing your assignments, you have to put that dollar sign in front of the money. All right. When you are talking about percentages, you have to put that percentage sign behind the number, or first of all, you're going to get counted off for it. And again, if it doesn't have a dollar sign in front of dollars, we don't know that that's supposed to mean dollars, right? We don't know that's supposed to be money. If you don't have the percentage sign, we don't know it's supposed to be a percentage. So make sure you are using those symbols. Labor cost percentage, again, same exact formula, but now we're plugging in our labor cost, and you can see our labor cost is $6,165. Our sales, $40,243. There's our cost divided by our sales, gives me that number that I multiply by 100. Here's my percentage, rounding to the nearest percentage point for 24.34%. Now my labor cost is $9,083. My sales, $45,475. Here's my labor cost divided by my sales, the decimal number that I multiply by 100 to give me my percentage, and again, rounding to the nearest percentage point for 19.97%. All right, other costs, again, same exact formula. All right, so our other cost you can see is $9,550. Our sales, $40,243. Cost divided by sales, decimal number times 100 gives us our percentage, rounding to the nearest percentage point. Now our other cost, $12,874. Sales, $43,475. Cost divided by sales, our decimal number times 100, our percentage rounded to the nearest percentage point. Now, I will also stress that when you are doing any of your homework assignments and that type of thing, they want to see your math. So make sure you are showing your math whenever you do any of your homework assignments. Inventory chart. Let's talk about that inventory chart. All right, so you can see beginning inventory, all of our purchases, ending inventory, food cost, revenue, sales, food cost percentage. Excuse me, I need to get a drink real quick. All right, when you open up your quiz, you've already seen the chart in week 4. Okay, so we're not going to panic over charts. Okay, you've seen the inventory chart. You know this part's not in here, this second little part here. I just forgot to take that out. No problem. You're focusing on this right here. Okay, all you have to do is look at the question. Is the beginning inventory important to know, and why? Yes, it's extremely important to know because that's the money that you have on the shelf until that product is sold. So you're tying up some capital because that product's still on the shelf, right? So it's important to know what you have on the shelf because that's your money, right? It's right there. What is the beginning inventory for the next inventory period? All right. It's going to be what your ending inventory is for this ending inventory period. All right. You're just going to pull it up and it's going to become your beginning inventory. If the ending inventory decreases, it goes down, and everything else stays the same, what happens to your food cost? Well, if your inventory is going down, means you're selling more, right? So you have to replace that, which means you have to purchase it, which means your food cost is going to go up. So if your inventory goes down, your food cost goes up. If the revenue increases and everything else stays the same, what happens to the food cost percentage? If your revenue goes up, your food cost percentage goes down. If the protein purchases decrease, how would that affect the total food cost? All right, well, your protein purchases go down, which means you're not purchasing as much. So if you're not buying as much, your food cost is going to go down. Is the food cost a little over 30% acceptable? Yes, as long as your other costs and your labor costs are all balancing out to still afford you a profit. If you go over a little bit over 30%, it's okay. You just don't want to go crazy with it. But if you go a little bit over and everything else balances out, you're fine. Projected versus actual. This is the other chart that's on your quiz, right? So I don't want you to freak out when you see a projected versus actual chart. Some of the questions are only going to ask you about the projected column. Some are only going to ask you about the actual column. Some you may have to compare. No problem. All right, so we're going to just look at the questions. We're not going to worry about all these numbers here. We're just going to look at the questions and see what do we need to do. All right, so first question. What were the results of the restaurant's actual revenue relative to its actual cost? That tells me I only need to look at the actual column. I'm going to find my revenue. All right, my actual revenue, which is down here, my sales, $29,810. My actual total cost, $22,162. All they want to know is this a profit, a loss, or a break even? A couple ways you can figure this out. All right, the simple way, look at this number down here, your total profit. If it doesn't have a minus sign or in parentheses, it means it's a profit. All right, because you can see here, let me clear this out. It's just it's a whole number, it's a regular number. That means I have a profit. That's the easiest way to figure this out. All right. The other way to figure it out is you look at your total cost and you look at your total sales. As long as the total number for your sales is higher than the number for your costs, you have a profit. So in this case, we do have a profit. Next question. What were the results of the restaurant's projected revenue relative to its projected cost? Well, now all I have to do is look at the projected column. I'm going to find my total cost. I'm going to find my total sales. My sales number is higher than my cost number. So that is the first thing that tells me that this is a profit. The second thing that tells me that this is a profit is this number right here under total profit. So again, we have a profit. When looking at the actual results, how can labor costs be adjusted? All right, well, now I know I have to compare the two. So I'm going to look at my labor cost for what I said I was going to do, the projected column. And then I'm going to look at the one that said what I actually did, what actually happened. And you can see I was $1,046 over what I said I was going to spend on labor. And that's a big number. So how can we fix that? How we can fix that is by avoiding overtime. We can send salary, don't ever send your salaried person home because they're going to make the same amount, whether it doesn't matter how many hours a week they work. So if you have to send somebody home on a slow shift, send your hourly worker home. You can schedule fewer hours, right? And you can cross train. Cross training is another great way to fix your labor cost. Based on the actual results, what adjustments need to be made to the food and beverage sales projections for next week? All right, well, let's look at our food and beverage sales. All right, we've got food sales and beverage sales. This is what we said we were going to sell. This is what we actually did. And you can see we are under by quite a bit. Right here's telling me how much I'm under on both accounts. All right, easy way to fix it, project less. Easy answer right there. All right, your week 6 assignment. Let's go over that. All right, the formulas that you're going to need to know. Cost divided by number of portions equals your cost per portion. Cost per portion divided by food cost percentage gives you your lowest possible menu price, always rounding to the nearest cent. One of the most common errors new food service operators experience is pricing their food too low, thinking they can undercut their competitors. For question 1, use 3 to 5 substantial sentences in your own words. Question 2, you must show your math and how you calculated the lowest menu selling price. All right, so question 1, based on what you have learned in the course about food cost control, food cost percentage, budget, and menu pricing, please explain 2 reasons why undercutting competitors is a poor strategy for success. Focus on the effect it's going to have on your overall business, and then put your answer in that text box right there. Now, a few reasons why undercutting competitors is a poor strategy. Pricing your menu slowly based on your competition without considering your budget or operating within your financial capabilities can be a risky decision for your food service business. Here are several reasons why it might not be a sound financial strategy. Unsustainable business model. Loss of profit margin, inadequate cash flow. Take a picture so you have this for that answer. Some more reasons: quality compromises, difficulty in recovering, risk of closure, potential for burnout. All another great reasons why you do not want to undercut your competitors to price your menu. All right, another great picture opportunity right there. And now, to avoid these challenges, you need to make sure that you conduct a comprehensive financial analysis. You need to include your budget, your cost estimation, profit margin calculations. You're going to determine prices that are going to align with your budget while providing a competitive edge. You're not going to solely focus on low prices, considering factors like quality, unique offerings, and excellent customer service. You're going to that way you're going to attract and retain customers while maintaining your financial stability. All right, now question 2. Using what you have learned in this course, determine the lowest possible menu selling price for a slice of K-berry cake on your menu. The K-berry cake contains 8 slices, and the whole cake costs $15.25 to make. If your restaurant's desired food cost percentage is 30%, what would be the lowest menu selling price for a single slice of K-berry cake? All right, so cost divided by number of portions gives you your cost per portion. And in this case, your portion is a slice. And then your cost per slice divided by the food cost percentage gives you your menu price. In this case, our cost is $15.25 divided by 8 slices gives us our cost per slice. Now we're going to, don't round yet. We're not ready to round. You're going to take your cost per slice, divide it by that 30%, and there's your menu price right there. And this is where you're going to round, which is going to be $6.35. All right, now always remember, try to set SMART goals for yourself to be successful. Be specific, make it measurable, make it attainable, be relevant and timely. All right, remember that you can find the tutors page on your eCampus page. Go to tutors, and there you can make an appointment with a tutor, and you can find all the recordings for our workshops. And I'm going to stop recording, stop sharing my screen, and then I'm going to stop recording.